Hello, my beautiful sparkly spirits and my fellow sparkly space blobs. It is your resident sparkly space blob, Sarah, and we are going to be diving into a very delicious topic, which is the Taurus Full Moon and exploring the golden shadow, the aspects of ourselves that we have suppressed, repressed, hidden away, even lost sight of in the process of trying to survive in the world, even though these are gifts, talents, interests, ways of being that are beautiful and empowering. This full moon helps to illuminate some of these things that we have censored out of ourselves and to come home to them. And I think that this is a really important place to do some deep exploration because right now, in the context of this intense world that we are living in, I think there's actually a tendency to double down on some of the places where we censor ourselves, trying to keep safe because these are old patterns of familiarity in the ways that we survived past power imbalances. And it replicates many of those for many of us right now. And so it's very tempting to double down on some of the self-censorship that takes away our joy. And so this full moon is going to remind us that there is great power and value and resonance in exploring these golden aspects of our shadow. I always like to follow the philosophy when I'm thinking about the shadow and the unconscious and the subconscious, that it's not a problem to be solved or eradicated or fixed. I think so often in the spirituality realm, there's this kind of positivity thinking that's also kind of like a Terminator, where it's like, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to eradicate the shadow and just be free of it and just be this pure light being. And that's never been that interesting or rewarding to me and has never been a modality that's worked particularly well for me historically if I was ever in one of those phases. After a few months, there would just be this hollow feeling to the whole adventure. And so I really love to think about doing any kind of shadow work, any work with Scorpio, any work where I'm going under the waves, which I just inherently enjoy. Let's be honest. I love it. It's where I thrive personally, but it's about exploring the mystery. It's about exploring this interesting set of clues and finding the fascinating way we come to know ourselves and be ourselves. And so Scorpio season always invites us into that treasure hunt, into that communion, into that translating experience, which for me makes it one of the most healing modalities to work with, even though initially it can feel very scary or intimidating. This can also be one of the softest places to land when we realize we've been censoring ourselves or carrying shame that we didn't even realize we were carrying, right? And so Scorpio season's inviting us into that deep mystery exploration. And this full moon is going to highlight that journey, but from a slightly different angle. Because while the moon is in Taurus and the sun is in Scorpio, they are having this communion between that creative cycle of death and rebirth, psychic and physical, mental and embodied, and how when we can move between these two polarities, we create something interesting and different. And Taurus is an energy that's very much about empowerment, embodiment, holding and taking space, releasing. There's no shame when you look at Taurus energy and the Empress and this delicious energy of embodiment. There's no space when we're really looking at the archetype itself. There's no space for holding ourselves in tiny little boxes and holding back. There's this sense of lusciousness, right? And this full moon is going to help us to explore reclaiming things that help us feel that lusciousness in ourselves. And I mentioned very briefly a few minutes ago about the golden aspects of shadow. So often we're going to think about shadow in terms of the things maybe we don't like about ourselves or the things that are scary to face in ourselves. And of course, that's part of shadow work. But there's so many layers, right? The shadow isn't just a monolith, it has so many layers to it. Other things that get stowed away and repressed and censored out of us when we're very young and put into the unconscious are gifts, interests, ways of being, talents, things that just light us up. We learn to censor out, not just things that might seem like a nuisance to the adults around us, but also things that are innately beautiful and good. And so they also get hidden because the shadow isn't just a negative, dark thing. What makes it a shadow is that it's kind of out of sight. It's a blind spot where we can't always consciously see it and be aware of it. And so it doesn't necessarily equate to just negative qualities. The shadow can also harbor a lot of really beautiful empowerment, embodiment, self-knowledge, gifts, talents, interests. All sorts of things are in there, and that's part of the mystery of it, right? And that's part of why it's not a problem to be solved. But this full moon's going to be illuminating a little bit of the blind spot around where we have censored out places of joy, creativity, play, exploration. And it's a really interesting journey to start to unearth these things, because one of the places we can look for this golden shadow is in the people that we adore and envy. And this can come out in a few different ways. We might just completely adore what somebody's doing. We see them doing that burlesque show or making that music or embodying leadership, and it's just like, we feel this longing, this pull. It's just like, it's just so good. I just want to be around that. That's a clue to our golden shadow. It can also come out as profound envy, jealousy, and even bitterness. And this is where we start getting into more of the classic shadow exploration. You know, when you just see somebody doing something and a little bit of your mean girl comes out that's a little petty and it's just like, she's not that great anyway. Those are also clues to our golden shadow. And so I don't want us to be afraid to notice where we either are in full adoration or in full petty envy. Both of these ways of experiencing our golden shadow can lead us to something true. And what's interesting about this too, though, because the shadow is a little bit elusive, it's a very elusive space. And it's very hard to look directly at. It takes a little bit of time to piece it together. A lot of times we might start off by envying or adoring something outside of us, a crush we have, a performer, somebody who's living a lifestyle we think we want, and we'll think it's about the thing they're doing. And when we start to explore a little bit more, and as you follow those questions about who do I adore, who do I envy, where do I feel bitterness, where do I just feel annoyed by certain people just getting to do what they want, we might think it's about getting the money or doing that specific art form. But often what will happen as we continue to follow the thread where it leads is it's about something completely different. It's about a completely different way of expression. We might find the place where we got censored out of wanting security, for example. We might find the place where we got talked out of following a passion or an interest. And this also leads me to another quality of this full moon. So we're following those threads where we just feel that magnetic pull of either adoration or envy. Where is it leading us? Where is it taking us? This is also a powerful path when we notice places of shame we are holding in our body. And I'm not going to be able to do that topic justice in this chat, and I'm by no means a specialist in shame or embodiment. I'm on my own journey with both of those things. But it's just something to kind of keep in mind that this illumination can also help us see and recognize voices of shaming and censoring that we may be carrying with us. And some of these voices are going to be very old. But also, I think in the context of the last year for sure, and the last few years, those shame voices can also be quite fresh. So this is a really beautiful time as well to notice where you're censoring yourself, shaming yourself, and trying to keep yourself safe through those modalities and witnessing them. Write them down on a piece of paper. What are those shame voices telling you? What are those censoring voices telling you? And in uncovering them, we will often find exactly also where our golden shadow is living. So this is also a beautiful time to look at any identities, expectations, societal rules, family system rules that are draining your life force or causing you to continue to censor yourself. So it brings up a lot of themes when we're working with this Taurus full moon energy. And there are just a couple of other conversations going on during this full moon that I think are also very relevant to this whole golden shadow conversation that we're having, because we're also still working with so much energy right around 0 degrees of signs. And one of the conversations that's going on during this full moon is Uranus in Gemini at 0 degrees and Mars at 0 degrees of Sagittarius. And of course, these are two totally different signs. They're the neighboring signs, and it's a different conversation. However, this 0 degree placement is significant because this is a point of new beginnings. Of course, a full moon is about us releasing. So we're releasing shame around what we really want, reconnecting to our golden shadow, all of that good stuff. But that 0 degree energy is challenging us to try things differently. Uranus is the experimenter, especially in Gemini, experimenting, trying on different costumes, trying on different hats, seeing what works. And Mars in Sagittarius is curiosity and exploration. And so there's a real call here to explore life beyond the familiar. And I think that's important when we're thinking about like exploring our shadow and exploring the places where we've censored expression out of ourselves, or repressed it and put it into this little cavern tucked away in our psyche. It's, actually reclaiming those gifts can feel unfamiliar, experimental, exploratory, kind of wild, like you're leaving behind the setup as it has always been. And yet at the same time, exactly like you're coming home to something even more familiar. And I think that kind of dual experience is something to really enunciate when we're doing anything. It also makes me think, with all of this energy, that we are working with a Taurus full moon after all. And Taurus is very connected to the body. And whenever you hear Taurus discussed, you'll often hear the word embodied coming up a lot. And I do think it's important with this kind of wild electric energy of Uranus and Mars opposing immutable energy, with the psychic realm being lit up by this Taurus full moon during Scorpio season, that feeling grounded and safe enough to do any of this exploring is essential. If we don't have that, any of this kind of wild exploring of what could be in the new ingredients that are trying to get our attention is going to feel way overpowering. And yes, this is a very positive full moon. It wants us to find those ingredients. It wants to help us. This energy is very much like, come on, let's explore, let's play, let's reclaim some of these gifts, let's get honest, let's re-embody in some of these ways. Like, let's bring some of this stuff that has been hidden away and bring it back to the conscious life. Let's go. That's amazing. And I do think many of us are going to have creative breakthroughs, aha moments about what we really want to do, aha moments about what we don't really want to do. But it's also important to feel that that is sustainable. So just keep in mind that this is a very electric time during this full moon. One final thing. This is a very little note. Jupiter in Cancer is going to be trining Saturn in Pisces during this full moon, which I just love. I couldn't ask for anything better. And for me, this is like such an amplification of inner mothering and spiritual foundation, having this beautiful trining conversation. So the questions I have with that in mind, and with the golden shadow in mind, and with the Taurus full moon in mind, is what would you do if you knew you were infinitely loved and cared for, without question? And What would you quit doing right away? That's the vibe with that trine. And I think that's a lot to work with. That's a lot to work with in one full moon. I am beginning to shuffle here, landing in this energy. It's so powerful and big. And I don't want us to get overwhelmed by that bigness, that like full presence of it. Like I'm going to have to do all my shadow work during this full moon because whatever clues and ingredients are ready to join us are the ones that we will be able to follow the thread to. And a lot of times we just need one little ingredient. And I think it's easy to underestimate how a moment of communion with the unconscious into the conscious, how powerful that is, how that can change everything. And it doesn't mean we have to overhaul our lives and suddenly become somebody else overnight. A lot of times that's the work of bringing the unconscious into the conscious. It's a very subtle yet profound experience that actually does help us to embody and be here in the physical world in a much different way. And that's what I really love about working with the Taurus Scorpio conversation. It can really help that entire translation process. I'm going to be doing a visualization in my Wild Dreaming community on Patreon for going toward that golden shadow. It's going to be a really soft visualization that just kind of gets us into the modality and see what wants to and is ready to come out of the blind spot and into the scene, into the observed. Our universe is so much about witnessing and observation as the way states change. So I would love to see you there if you want a little support and encouragement. And we're also in the middle of a very deep psychic journey with Wild Dreaming with the Soul Song, which is a wild dreaming journey. We have 2 sessions every single month. And we also have a Wild Magic Makers Gathering this month as well on Zoom. So if you want to join me for any of that, I'd love to see you. And now I'm still shuffling. And what came out? The Fool. Oh my goodness. That to me is that Uranus Mars 0 degree energetic quality that's moving through. But also the Fool, you could kind of imagine the Fool as all those ingredients before they were censored. Often those get censored in childhood as we learn to grow. And then another card fell out. It's the Queen of Swords. I can't think of a better combo. I love it so much. Oh, and I looked down at my deck, and I'm sorry, but the Empress came out at the bottom of my deck. So I guess she has to come along too, because what's more fitting than that on a Taurus full moon, my friends? I can't think of anything more fitting. I'm getting full body shivers. There's just a lot of energy moving in the world right now. Have you noticed? Probably you have. That was a sarcastic question. That was a wink, wink question. Okay, so the Fool, our beginner, our sacred beginner. And this to me is the unburdened, free, uncensored, joyful aspects of ourselves, right? Like what we would do if we weren't scared that our family members would judge us, if we weren't scared that, we won't have the security that we need. Those are all real questions that I think affects our systems, and we don't need to pretend they don't affect us and just have this hyper positive vibe. So there are such things as different levels of privilege and different scenarios that we're working with. But it is fun to explore our inner Fool. And I think there's an encouragement here to follow what feels really fun and good and playful. And that's another way to approach your golden shadow and this Taurus full moon. It's not always just about doing shadow work. I think the golden shadow is hiding in all the places that we end up procrastinating, where we end up kind of our focus and attention ends up going over here, even though we're supposed to be doing this. So the Fool is another path to walk toward that golden shadow. The Queen of Swords is really interesting here because she is a communicator of boundaries, clarity, and honesty, and calling things as they are. And I do think there's a deeply healing quality to this time where, yes, it's about reclaiming our gifts and our joy and our centered embodied selves and finding some of the clues for that. And that also comes with recognizing, oh, that system, that shame message, that way of treating myself or that way of you treating me does not work. That's the other side of this whole conversation, right? So I think the Queen of Swords is reminding us also it's okay to say, I don't accept that shame voice. I don't accept that energy in my space, you know? And then the Empress, our dear friend, the card that reflects Taurus energy. Taurus embodiment. I love a good moment with the Empress. Who doesn't? I mean, this just reminds me of deliciousness, of taking your time, of knowing that your process, your journey, your weird, wacky, wild combo of bizarre ingredients, failures, challenges, the walls you're hitting, the things you do not know what you are doing with, the things that feel like, why did I walk this path? Like, seriously, or why is this path being brought to me? All of it, it's okay that you're there in that, even if you're not totally satisfied with it and you're not feeling great. The Empress creates spaciousness, and I think that's what's really important in this energy, where there's no judgment. There's no, oh, let's like sit here and judge ourselves for every twist and turn. There's just the space for the process, the ingredients, and the feeling that it's safe to explore the creative path and move from a very safe physical experience into new creation. And I think it's just really important, actually, that safety, how we create that in our bodies, in our minds, is a cornerstone of doing any of the other things we've discussed here today. That inner mothering, that inner nurturer, that inner grounded capital S self is the best guide at this time. And I don't know, there's just this buoyancy to all three of those cards, this clarity, this aha energy that's so strong. Are you feeling it? I am feeling it. I want to know what elements are coming up for you. What is your golden shadow showing you about yourself, about your journey? Maybe you've been communing with your golden shadow for the last few years and it won't leave you alone. Let me know what your golden shadow shows you in the comments. I seriously want to read all about that. I love reading the comments. Like I mentioned, you can join me for my wild dreaming classes, my tarot courses. I have a wild magic makers gathering on Zoom in November. We have so many amazing resources in that space. I'm also planning a very deep ritual 6-week journey for New Year's, which is going to take us out of the time pressure paradigm and into the mystical, archetypal, wild dreaming world. We're going to be working with tarot. We're going to be working with imagery. We're going to be working with creativity. It's going to be so good. So I have so much going on in that space. We're going to join back here again very soon. We have a lot coming up the rest of this month. I hope you'll stick around with me, my beautiful, wild, weird spirits of sparkles, and I will see you back here for our next chat.